Somewhere on this planet right now, there are people waking up in places that most humans don't even know exist. No supermarkets, no hospitals around the corner. In some cases, no road in or out. These aren't places people got stranded. These are places people chose. Generation after generation, they planted roots, built communities, and called these extraordinary, often brutal environments home. Today, we're counting down the 10 most remote places people have ever permanently settled and exploring the remarkable stories of why they stayed. Number 10. Hidden at the bottom of a side canyon in the Grand Canyon, Supai is the most remote community in the contiguous United States. It's home to the Havasupai tribe, a name that literally means people of the blue-green waters. There are no roads into Supai. To get there, you either hike 8 miles down a rugged canyon trail, ride in on horseback, or arrive by helicopter. The U.S. Postal Service still delivers mail here by mule, making it the last mule mail route in the country. About 450 people live here year-round, surrounded by some of the most jaw-dropping waterfall scenery on the planet. The Havasupai have inhabited this canyon for over 800 years, and despite offers to relocate, they have consistently chosen to stay, maintaining a connection to their land that outsiders can barely comprehend. Number 9. At 78 degrees north, Longyearbyen is the world's northernmost permanent settlement, sitting deep inside the Arctic Circle on the Svalbard archipelago, roughly halfway between mainland Norway and the North Pole. For 4 months of the year, the sun never rises. For another 4, it never sets. Polar bears outnumber people here. There are around 2,600 bears on the island and only about 2,400 human residents. By law, you must carry a rifle when leaving town. Originally a coal mining town, Longyearbyen has evolved into a small but surprisingly cosmopolitan settlement. It has a university, a cultural center, and restaurants. But make no mistake, this is one of the most extreme places on Earth to call home. You can't be buried here either. The permafrost preserves bodies too well, so residents who die are flown to mainland Norway. Number 8. On the remote northeastern coast of Greenland sits one of the most isolated towns on the planet, Itokortormiet. With a population of just around 350 people, it clings to the edge of the world's largest fjord system, accessible only by helicopter or boat, and only when the ice allows, which is roughly 3 months of the year. The nearest town is over 500 kilometers away. Residents subsist largely through hunting and fishing. Polar bears, musk oxen, seals, and walruses are all part of the diet. It's not a lifestyle for the faint-hearted. The Inuit people have lived in this region for thousands of years. It's adapting to conditions that most of us could not survive for a single winter. Their knowledge of the sea ice, weather patterns, and wildlife is encyclopedic, passed down through generations of living on the edge. Number 7. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as its people call it, sits in the South Pacific Ocean, 3,500 kilometers from the coast of Chile. It is one of the most remote inhabited islands on Earth. The nearest other populated island is over 2,000 kilometers away. The Polynesian ancestors of today's Rapa Nui people are thought to have arrived around 1,200 years ago, navigating thousands of miles of open ocean in wooden canoes, guided only by stars, wind, and waves. Their achievement in settling this tiny speck in the world's largest ocean remains one of the greatest feats of navigation in human history. Today, about 8,000 people live here, watched over by the island's famous moai, nearly 1,000 stone statues carved by their ancestors, some standing over 10 meters tall. Flights arrive a few times a week from Santiago, but isolation is still very much part of daily life. Number 6. If you thought Norway was cold, meet Oymyakon, a village in the Russian Republic of Sakha, deep in Siberia, that holds the record for the lowest recorded temperature of any permanently inhabited place on Earth, -67.7 degrees Celsius, or -90 degrees Fahrenheit. About 500 people live here year-round. At those temperatures, cars must be kept running constantly or they won't start again. Ink freezes in pens. Glasses freeze to your face. Burials take days because the ground must be thawed with hot coals before it can be dug. There's no fresh produce. The diet is almost entirely meat and fish. The village has one school which only closes when temperatures drop below -52 degrees. Why do people stay? Many were resettled here during the Soviet era. Others simply say, this is home. It's the land they know. And the cold is just Tuesday. Number 5. This is frequently called the most remote inhabited island in the world, and the numbers back that up. Tristan da Cunha sits in the South Atlantic Ocean, 2,800 kilometers from the nearest land, which is itself the tiny island of St. Helena. The nearest continent, Africa, is over 3,000 kilometers away. There is no airport. The only way to reach Tristan da Cunha is by boat from South Africa, a journey that takes 6 days and only happens a handful of times a year. About 250 people live here, most of them sharing just 8 surnames, descendants of the original settlers who arrived in the early 1800s. The entire population was evacuated in 1961 when the island's volcano erupted. They were taken to England, and the vast majority chose to return. Despite living in one of the most modern countries in the world, most of them couldn't wait to get back to their tiny, volcanic, ice-storm-lashed island in the middle of nowhere. Number 4. Alert, Canada sits at 82.5 degrees north, just 817 kilometers from the geographic North Pole. It is the northernmost permanently inhabited place on Earth. Full stop. It's technically a military signals intelligence station and weather monitoring post maintained by the Canadian Armed Forces and Environment and Climate Change Canada. On the rotating staff, never more than about 60 people at any time, experience 5 months of complete polar darkness each year, and temperatures that can plunge to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Supply flights are the only connection to the outside world. Fresh food is rare. The psychological challenge of months of darkness, combined with extreme cold and profound isolation, means that personnel are carefully screened before being posted here. It is, by any measure, yet one of the most challenging places any human being has ever chosen to live and work. Number 3. For most of history, Motuo County in Tibet was the last county in China without a road connection to the outside world, and for good reason. It sits in one of the most geographically complex and treacherous places on the planet, the Great Bend of the Yarlung Tsangpo River, where the Himalayas plunge suddenly into subtropical jungle. Surrounded by snow-capped peaks, raging rivers, avalanche zones, and impenetrable forest, Motuo was only accessible via a perilous multi-day trek over mountain passes. Multiple attempts to build a road failed over decades, swallowed by landslides, floods, and the sheer hostility of the terrain. A tunnel finally connected it to the outside world in 2010. Yet the Monpa and Loba peoples have called this extraordinary valley home for centuries. They describe it as a sacred land, a hidden paradise concealed from the world by the mountains. And looking at the landscape, dense jungle, orchids, waterfalls, snow peaks above. It's not hard to see why. Number 2. Pitcairn Island has one of the most extraordinary origin stories of any settlement on Earth. Its modern inhabitants are the descendants of the Bounty mutineers, the sailors who, in 1789, famously set their captain adrift and fled into the Pacific to escape British justice. They found Pitcairn, a tiny, steep, volcanic island about 5 kilometers across, and burned the Bounty in the bay to prevent detection. For 18 years, the outside world didn't know they were there. Today, roughly 40 to 50 people live on the island, making it one of the least populated jurisdictions on Earth. There is no airstrip. Supply ships pass by only a few times a year. The islanders row out in longboats through open surf to collect their supplies. Internet arrived in 2010. Pitcairn is a British overseas territory desperately trying to attract new residents, because at current rates, the community may simply become too small to sustain itself within a generation. Number 1. Our number 1 isn't just remote in terms of geography. It's remote by choice, a deliberate, absolute, and fiercely defended separation from the rest of humanity. North Sentinel Island sits in the Bay of Bengal, part of India's Andaman archipelago. It's not especially large, about the size of Manhattan, but the people who live there, known as the Sentinelese, have rejected every attempt at contact with the outside world. For potentially 60,000 years, they have lived in complete isolation from the rest of human civilization. When ships or helicopters come too close, they respond with arrows and spears. Several people who attempted to land uninvited have been killed. The Indian government, in a remarkable policy decision, He has declared that no one may approach within 3 nautical miles of the island, protecting both the outsiders and, crucially, the Sentinelese themselves, who have no immunity to modern diseases. We do not know their language. We do not know their beliefs or their social structures. We know almost nothing about them, except that they are there, they are healthy, and they want nothing to do with us. In a world where every corner has been explored, mapped, and photographed, East North Sentinel Island stands as the one true frontier, a place that chose to remain remote, and still does. From the frozen tip of the planet to a volcanic island in the South Atlantic, from a hidden Himalayan valley to an island that has defied the modern world for 60,000 years, human beings have an extraordinary capacity to make a home out of anywhere. If you found this video fascinating, hit subscribe. We cover human history, geography, and the stories behind the places that shape our world. And let us know in the comments, which of these places would you most want or least want to call home?